So on this live today, it's my first live, but what I want to do is run through what's working for Google Ads in 2025. The way that we're seeing a number of different changes within the Google platform, and we want to stay up to date with what's working. And one of the most important aspects is if we're looking at videos of other advertisers talking about Google Ads, we're staying relevant. So you could potentially be watching a video which is 12, 15, 18 months old, which is incorrect data. Because the platform's changing so quickly, evolving, we need to make sure that we're staying on top of what's happening, what's changing within the Google Ads platform. So things that I want to talk about today is what's working in 2025. So I'm recording this in October. We need to know that everything is changing at such a rate. We've never seen so much change in probably the last sort of 15, 18 months of Google advertising. So things that I get asked a lot and things that I'm seeing, which is potentially a little bit of misinformation or just a lack of understanding of the Google Ads platform, is user intent and how we kind of structure accounts. So when I structure an account, some of the things that I look to do is when I'm implementing ad groups around ads, we're looking to add 1 to 2 broad terms, and then I'm looking to build those out with exact terms. Now, we need to make sure that when we're doing our keyword research, that we're making sure that the theme is based very closely to the ads themselves. So what we're looking for is relevancy. Google rewards relevancy. So when you're creating your ads, you're looking at the keywords that you're targeting, you're looking at your ad copy, and you want relevancy to run through. So when somebody clicks on your ad, they're going to click on it, and then from there, they're going to go to your landing page or website. And then ideally, you want them to convert. And obviously, you need to make sure the tracking's following the whole process through, whether that's making a phone call or a lead form submission or a purchase, depending if you're an e-commerce store. So I want to make sure that the quality of the conversion, the quality of the user journey is that of a high standard. And we can look at things like quality scores in our keywords. So we're making sure that we've got ad relevancy, which is just making sure that the relevancy of the ad is that relevance to the actual landing page or website. And then from there, we're making sure that the ad copy is of the same ilk based on what we're seeing on the data. So quality scores is something that I get asked a lot regards to what is a quality score. A quality score is the quality of the relevancy of a number of different parts of your Google Ads. So we want to try to or be achieving a 5 out of 10 quality score. If I get a 5 out of 10 for quality score, then I know that the Google Ads is going to show at the auction insight and give us a good opportunity for us to convert well. Once I get 5 out of 10, I'm kind of happy. And if it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 out of 10, then obviously it's just an added bonus. But what we're going to try is make sure we get a 5 out of 10. And what we're looking for is relevancy. So the ads, the landing page, the ad copy, the keywords we're targeting is all relevant. And then Google will show us that data at a quality score. Now, it's not something that I pay attention to, but sometimes we can see a quality score of 3 or 4, but still see a lot of conversions coming through. But what we want to try and do overall with the campaign is make sure that we've got a lot of relevancy running through. So other things that I'm seeing is when we're creating our ad campaigns and we're adding in the ad structure, make sure that when we're targeting or when we're creating those keywords, we want them based around keyword themes. So we want them tightly knit together, and that's why we have several ad groups. So we have an ad group based around keyword themes, 1 to 2 broad, we add in as exact once somebody converts, and then we're building out the structure. The reason I like to build out this particular type of structure is because if we're running a search campaign and we're looking to then say we wanted to then move to a PMAX campaign, say we had a search campaign running for 4 or 5 months, we had a lot of data coming through, we were getting good amount of conversions, data coming through was good, we were optimizing on a weekly basis. If we want to then progress from a search to a PMAX campaign, we know the structure is sound, it's a good structure to then add on to a PMAX campaign from a search campaign. Why? Because when we create a PMAX campaign, what we want to do is make sure it doesn't interfere with the search campaign. Things that we can do to try and mitigate those interference or kind of cannibalization of PMAX campaigns into the search campaigns is excluding brand from the PMAX, because you already have the brand being searched for within your search campaign. looking for new customers only. So it almost acts as a top of funnel. Remember, a PMAX campaign will run across all of Google, whereas a search will only run on the search network. And then what we're trying to do is make sure that with these search terms that we're adding, the reason we add them in as exact is when we add a PMAX campaign to a search campaign as a supplementary product, then we want to make sure that the search is still staying relevant for the search terms that we're adding in. So if we've got it exact, then the PMAX won't interfere. So the priority for an exact word will go to the search campaign, whereas potentially the priority for a broad term may go to the PMAX campaign. And that's why we build out the structure. Phrase, broad, exact. Why do we not use phrase anymore? The reason we don't use phrase anymore is phrase acts as broad, but with broad, the signal that we get from Google is this 5 to 6 different signals that a broad term will, or a broad term will give you up to 5 to 6 more signals rather than a phrase will do. So it will look at user intent, it will look at landing pages, previous landing pages, ad copy relevance based on what we're actually creating the ads around, conversion history. I'm just looking at my notes, making sure that we're getting everything, location and device context, bidding strategy signals. So a broad will look at 5 to 6 more signals that a phrase won't. And the reason we add in exact, because that's the closest variant to the actual search term that has triggered the actual ad itself. So personally, I only use broad and phrase, so broad and exact terms. I don't use phrase anymore. Now, if I'm coming into an account that I see phrase is being used and it's working, then rather than stopping the whole account, creating a new account, what I'll do is I'll leave what's working and then I'll add in the structure that I know works. So if there's some phrase in there, I won't just turn them off, I'll leave them. But then what I'll do is I'll look to structure the account to give it broad. Now, remember, the broad will give the campaign volume, and then the exact will tell you exactly what's working, the closest variant to what the actual keyword that actually fired the ad. But the broad will give us the volume. But the way that we control the broad is we add negative keywords, and we're doing that on our weekly optimization process. And before we've even launched the campaign, so we've created our keywords, we've built the ad copy out, we know what the headlines and descriptions are. From there, we're adding in an exclusion list, which tells Google not to fire or to make sure we don't show for these particular terms. And this is done even before we've launched the campaign. So you should have an exclusion list built out. It's a little bit more additional work. But by doing that on the launch of a campaign, then we're going to not show for certain terms. And the reason we do that is when we launch a campaign in Google Ads, we want to launch it and not touch it for up to 5 days, because it will tend to go into a bid strategy learning. If it goes into a bid strategy learning, every time you try and optimize it, it will then extend that bid strategy learning. So we want to make sure that we're not showing for terms that are irrelevant, and we do that by having an exclusion list. Once the campaign's out of bid strategy learning, we can then start to optimize based on the data that we're seeing. And we're doing this through our optimization checklist. Now, how often should you be optimizing your Google Ads is another question. That depends on the budget. Now, if you're driving a car and you're going 30 miles an hour, and then somebody next to you is driving at 60 miles an hour, they're obviously going faster than you. And it's the same with Google Ads and the budget. If you've got a budget running on 30 a day and say another campaign running on 600 a day, then obviously the data coming back to you on the 600 a day is going to be a lot quicker. So we can optimize faster. But probably the biggest mistake, or one of the mistakes that I see from people who've started out with Google Ads, is optimizing on a daily basis. We have to optimize, but we also have to give Google the room to do what it needs to do. And the way it does that, it needs to go through your bidding strategy, distributing of budget. So say you've done you've increased your budget by 20%. Try not to do too many optimizations to the campaign for up to 5-7 days. See how the conversions appear. If you're seeing a bit of a pullback, clicks, impressions, then leave the campaign for a little bit longer to potentially then try to recover. Sometimes if I see budgets going from say 200 a day to 400 a day, what we may see is clicks and impressions pull back and then conversions pull back. In that instance, I would tend to leave the campaign a little bit longer, look for it to recover, and then from there we can further optimize. But remember, if we're looking to increase budgets or changing bidding strategy, say we're changing a bidding strategy, then potentially you would expect a little bit of a pullback. But if you don't, then that's fine. But if we're doubling the budget, which we shouldn't be doing, then potentially we can see a little bit of a pullback with our Google ads. 20% increments, 15 to 20% increments every 5 to 7 days is fine. If you're looking to scale, then just do slow and steady. And with Google, the motto is slow and steady wins the race. And we've got to do small optimizations on a weekly basis. We shouldn't be sort of ramming in all our optimizations at the end of the month or every other month. We should be doing a little bit every week, but also knowing when to take the foot off the gas and on the gas. And then from there, looking at the data coming through, and then we can further optimize the campaigns. So other things, other questions that I sometimes get. So phrase and exact, we've spoken about that. I'm a big fan of exact, having some broad exact. And then we can build out the broad as well. We can add more broad. If we're seeing certain keyword themes working, we can add on to them. As we see in the search terms audit, we're adding negative keywords or adding terms that are converting as exact because that's the closest variant. Remember, our job as advertisers in Google is to put on our inspections hat, and we have to find out what search terms are triggering our ads. Google won't tell you, but it'll give you the clues, and that's in the search terms report, looking at the call editor, the call reports, seeing what search terms triggered the calls, and then from there, look to add those terms if you're not already targeting them. So we're looking at a number of different places that we can add in and then further optimize our campaigns. Other issues that I often see when I'm auditing accounts is just tracking not working. If you're doing the tracking or you're getting somebody else to do the tracking for you, you should be still your optimization. A lot of the optimizations are just checking things. It's not actually doing anything to the account. It's just checking to make sure call assets, are they still working? Are there any disapproved call assets? Tracking, is the tracking still working? Normally Google will say if there's an issue with the tracking, but we should be having this checked on a weekly basis, maybe on a Monday or a Friday. Check your tracking, because a lot of times if the tracking is not working, it's like your guidance system. The tracking is your guidance system to home in onto exactly what your ideal customer is, and then from there we can collect the data, and that also then tells Google exactly what's going on. And if we're running lead generation, then another slightly more advanced strategy is to make sure that we're uploading offline conversions. And a lot of this can be done through automations. So we can tell Google that not only is this a conversion, but this is the type of quality conversion that somebody has actually converted. This is the price that they've actually paid for this service. And then we can upload that back into Google as a figure. And then Google then will cross-reference that, knowing that the offline conversion is of the quality that we require for say a lead generation company. So offline conversions, that's something a little bit more advanced, but definitely if we're running PMAX campaigns, then that's something that we should be implementing as well. So I hope that kind of gives you a bit of an overview. I'm just checking to make sure I haven't missed anything. Probably the other thing that I get asked a lot is split testing. Do we still need to split test? We do need to split test consistently. So even when we're scaling, we're still looking to split test within Google Ads. So we're always testing different headlines and descriptions, and we can now see the data at the asset level. So we don't necessarily have to duplicate ads like we used to. We can run one ad group with one ad, and because we're getting a lot more data now at the asset level, we can make better informed decisions. And everything we're doing in Google is based on the data that's coming. And remember, if we're running a smaller budget, the data is going to be a little bit slower than if we're running, say, on $300 or £3,000 a day, then the data is going to be coming at us a lot faster. And from there, we can further optimize our campaign. So split testing, experiments I've spoken about. Try experiments, fantastic way, low risk, low reward, so low risk, high reward way that we can get more conversions for our Google Ads. And we can do experiments for a number of different things, bidding strategies, landing pages, just trying different things within the experiments. Split testing, you can duplicate ads, but if you got the asset level, view assets or view the details of the ads, then we can run one ad, see what headlines and what descriptions are working, and then what aren't, we can update those headlines and descriptions. The one thing that I want to leave you with today is with Google, if it's working, leave it. If it's not working, then look to update it or change it. That's probably the easiest thing. And also part of the Google optimization process is just taking a step back. It's not optimizing every single day. We've got to know when to go into the account and make those changes, but also then to take a step back and let the AI, let Google do its thing, and then wait for data to come back, and then we can further optimize based on that. But remember, it all depends on budget. The bigger the budget, the quicker the data is going to come back to you, the quicker you can optimize. The smaller the budget, there's no problem with running on smaller or larger budgets. It just means that the optimization may take a little bit longer. So based upon that, then I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, let me know, and we could possibly do a live once a week.